you're missing the opportunity to stand up for yourself and educate other people. There's a learning and teaching opportunity every single time this situation arises. And that sort of come together as a group to discuss issues around the serious topic of recent events around George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matters movement. And we're going to go through a couple of discussions points that we thought were really good questions to cover, and just to get our individual thoughts about them and see where they align, where they're different, and maybe get some interesting insights. So I guess we're going to first start off with the very, very relevant question of around the events in the wake of the George Floyd death, first of all, and how we feel it's changed our lives and the world around us. And if I can just kick off, I mean, I look at this. I think the biggest impact for me in this topic is how it affected me personally. I think the world in itself we can't change, but you can obviously look at your locus of control, and my world is my locus of control. And I think about how I viewed this topic as an individual, how people around me, the people in my social circle, how they've interacted with me over the years, the little things that I've ignored, and the things that I haven't really educated myself around. I think the biggest point for me, I think more recently rather than when it first happened, when I got over the initial shock, I think about my rights as an individual, and where it fits, and how fair it is, and how we bring that into the idea of equality and equity. How much of it is about being fair and keeping everything the same, and how much of it is giving me the opportunities I need to be the best person I can be in this society. And those are kind of things I think I've been thinking about. And to be honest with you, you have I feel I have come to a place where I realize that I am I'm satisfied, content with where I am in terms of I don't feel I've been subjugated in any way or made to feel like a lesser person in society. But I think I'm a lucky individual, if I'm being honest. But I also feel that if I was a bit more adamant for the equity that I deserve, that or the equity that is in question, not that I don't feel I deserve the equity. I think that if that equity or the opportunity of equity existed, would I be more than I am today? That question, and obviously that brings us a whole more concept that you can't really gauge the what you don't know, the possibility. That's not something you can do. But what does that world look like? And it's a case of making it possible for us to know that. I think that's where I've come to. I hope that makes sense, but that's where I've come to right now.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's almost like, okay, so if you look back in your life, actually, were there instances or experiences you might have not noticed that might have sort of given other people an unfair advantage over you because of the color of your skin? It's like you're looking back, it's like, okay, have I had those experiences or not? And it's hard to look back retrospectively, and a lot of the times you don't see things that are wrong with the system. Because you just sort of see it from your perspective, and it's interesting when other people point it out and you're like, and then you start sort of picking things up like, oh right, yeah, like maybe that was the case, maybe this happened, but
trigger something in your head, right? Like for you to start thinking from a different perspective. I guess like when that happens, when someone points it out and you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in addition to, like, it's almost a case of there is a in my situation where I describe myself as being quite happy in terms of not feeling, I don't feel outrightly, there's been an outright injustice in my case. I'm not speaking for that person around, but for me as an individual, I feel content. But I think if I challenge the things that caused me to niggle slightly, if I had made more of a fuss about the difference between somebody getting recognition just because you have a closer relationship with, and that is based on your social structure. Whereas, I'm an outsider. If I make, because I understood the fact that I'm an outsider, and I felt, okay, I need to do more. But actually, if I made more of a fuss about it, was that an opportunity missed in terms of an opportunity for me to get the recognition which I may not have got. I didn't get back even quiet. Is that an opportunity missed in terms of educating those people to let them know that actually what you're doing is actually wrong? It's unfair what you're doing, because obviously you're promoting, like I've been in workplaces where people, they've come together based on the similarities. And that's not a racism thing, that's a natural instinct. Same way I congregate with people of my skin color because we understand our culture. I have friends outside my skin color, obviously, don't get me wrong. Because you naturally you gravitate to people who have the same taste as you. Music, culturally, the area you lived in, the kind of things you experience, you congregate around those people. And I think that's where the responsibility of the individual is. Like, you're missing the opportunity to stand up for yourself and educate other people. There's a learning and teaching opportunity every single time this situation arises, and that is my locus of control. I need to, even if it's not something I take, it's almost like educating a child, when they do something, wrong. Doesn't hurt you personally, but actually, if you
is it your job though?
Hmm?
Like, sometimes I just feel like it's not always our jobs to educate them. I don't like people. Like, try to do, like, so obviously you kind of want people to understand your point of view, and I think I've mentioned this in sort of something else later on, but it's just what you were saying, sort of people making comments, or like, sort of like, you feel the need to, well, okay, now it's the time to actually stand up and correct them. And I'm like, I totally understand that. Yeah, and I do as much as I can, but sometimes, like, I'm so guilty of sort of either not doing it to the people I don't know because sort of the reaction that I might get, or even if it's with my, like, in my own friends, I will do it, but then I always kind of do it like almost like in a light-hearted way, just so that I don't end up like ruining the conversation, or like ruining the mood, or like, oh, come on, like, it was just a joke. But like, it's not just a joke, like, if it makes you feel lesser than, or if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then you've got the right to say, no, that's not okay. But then you don't want to be that guy.
That's the thing, right? Is like, that's what I always battle with, and I wish I was just one of those people that just thought, you know what, like, if they think like, oh, I'm being difficult, then so be it. But like, I'm just gonna speak my mind. But I'm always in this battle where I think, like you just said, Si, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to be that person that always like kills the vibe when someone makes a comment and it's banter, right? Because everything is banter, right? That's how it's masked. And so I don't want to be that guy where just like I correct them and then I'm made to feel bad for correcting them. And you're like, oh, and then you start thinking, am I being difficult because I'm correcting someone on something that's wrong, which is blatantly wrong? It's not even like a, you know what I mean?
Okay, so an interesting question with this then. An interesting question with this is another one that we've got really is when you felt for the first time, when you realized or experienced, I suppose, racism for the first time. Like, because when you're talking about, like, social interaction is one of these very strange things. I played football growing up, obviously, and as you know, this is like, in terms of that, the changing room banter is what we call it. I don't know if you've actually sport events or stuff, but for guys, you have like, there's like a focus on being inappropriate, as inappropriate as possible, and there's almost practically no limits as to what you can say to each other. Even recently, I played football and I was on the pitch and I was playing with a multi-diverse group, and there's this Irish guy in his 50s, and he was like, "So Jeff, where are you from?" I'm like, "We're playing football. We just met today. What is it about?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Nigerian." And he goes, "Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I guess you'll become our new favorite Nigerian." I'm like, "Well, why do I have to be your favorite?" Like, and are you one of those real Nigerians, or were you? I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
So I was thinking this myself. I just met this guy.
It's always funny, isn't it? It's like, oh god.
But I've never said I don't recall ever going up to a white person because, oh, so
where are you from?
And I suppose if I try to put, I can't relate to a white person in that side because I can't say, not that I can't relate to them, I can't understand what makes you say that because I say, I've never gone up to a white person and go, oh, you know what,
Yeah, man.
you're my favorite white person, you know, where are you from? Nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's because, you know, you want to show that you're not, it shows that you're comfortable talking about different, you know, I try to judge the spirit of the conversation and I try to judge the, you know, but there is only, I have to be, if I'm a cynical person, I would assume that person's being underhanded and there's a subtlety to his insult, or why do you have one favorite Nigerian? Do you know what I mean that's country where there's a lot of Nigerians? Why you only have one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like, does that mean that you have a favorite person per country,
Yes.
or is it just because
Ethnicity
you're
or
black and you're like, oh,
And there is differences make people feel uncomfortable, and sometimes when you're uncomfortable, you do some stupid stuff or say some really silly stuff. So I have to gauge it based on that. Do I now turn around and say to this guy who's obviously trying to be lighthearted, you're being offensive? Or do I just let it go? And if I don't say something, which going back to your point, is it my responsibility? If I don't say something, this poor guy will say it to somebody because, oh, I said it to Jeff. It was cool. So I'm not the guy who makes it acceptable for you to go to every Nigerian. Go, well, you're not as high as Jeffrey, but you're what I mean.
you're my second favorite Nigerian.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the person who promotes that tolerance. That's not the kind of tolerance I want to promote. I want to promote one where I can come into into a forum, and it's the fact that Jeff comes in and does some wacky stuff when he comes into the room. That what sets me apart, rather than the fact that I'm Nigerian.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that's
I think know how you feel.
I had well, I guess growing up, so many experiences like this. But I'm me and Artie, my wife, we went to Cyprus a month after we got married, so it's pretty much like our honeymoon. And so we went to Cyprus and we were staying in this resort. We went for like I think 6 or 7 nights, and we went on this kind of like excursion with the hotel group. There was a group of us went in a minivan, went over. So we spent a day with all these people, and they were mostly old people, you know, in their kind of like 60s, because it was a place called Limassol. So it was like a very like, you know, young people don't necessarily go there. But there was a couple there that were in probably I think 50 years old or something, and I'll never forget them. The names were Phil and Debbie, and we were talking to them throughout the day, you know, having a good time. We had lunch with them, had some wine with them, and as they were getting to know us, getting to know each other, they said, "Oh, so what you into?" There's music playing and stuff. You know, went to someone's kind of place to have lunch. Music playing, and then I was like, oh, I can't really get myself into this in regards to like dancing. Like I don't know how to move to this. And they're like, oh, what do you listen to? And I was like, oh, I'm like more R&B and hip hop. And then all of a sudden, Phil just was like, oh, really? Like all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, oh my god. And then it's just one of those stereotype things. So every single time he spoke to me after that moment, he would keep making a stereotype comment just because I'm into R&B and hip hop. And as if to say that everyone that listens to R&B and hip hop is like that or should be like that. And so he'll start making references like, like trying to be hip and stuff like that. And he kept making comments, and they were kind of like microaggressions. And I said to Artie, I was like, I mean, the thing is, he was really funny, and I at that point sort of took it as like sort of light banter, and I thought, he's just one of those guys that he's obviously not educated enough, whatever, but he's just having a laugh. He's cool, and he kept doing it for and then even on the way back on the coach, and we were sitting next to them, and then I said to Artie, I was like, I swear he's being racist, like, and I said it to her about 5 times, and she goes, yeah, he's a bit like odd in that sense, and I was like, he's definitely being racist, right? Or he's stereotyping just because like I'm into a certain type of music, or because I'm Asian, person of color. And she goes, yeah. And then we spoke about it after, and we saw him around the hotel for the next 2-3 days after that, and he would continue to do these things.
Yeah. Oh God, that's just so.
Yeah, and I at that moment did not know how to kind of respond, so I kind of just I wasn't in a position myself at that time to just call him out on anything, because I just thought, it's a holiday. I don't really know this guy. I just met him. We're in the same resort. I don't want to like ruin vibes. and then
So I mean,
make
it's
him feel
always like it's always you who have to carry this like emotional burden, because like you're the only person who's thinking, oh, if I do this, this is gonna happen. If I do this, but it's like it's all on you, and they're just like walking around like, oh yeah, I'm just like like assimilating with this guy, and it's like it's all cool, because like. Sorry, I think we've just kind of like gone back to microaggressions again, because like for me, often it almost comes in the form of like people are complimenting me. So they're like sort of, oh, like, where are you from? And like, oh, your English is so good. Or I get that like
I hate when
all
that
the
happens.
time. And oh god, what are the other examples? Oh, like you must make really good kimchi, and it's like, I am not Korean. Or like, we do like working out or something like at a restaurant or something, working out like the bill, and they'll be like, well, so you can't obviously you can't be bad at maths, and it's like all this stuff that's like it's not like we're not harmful, it's like not aggressive, but you're just like, oh, it's like, what do I do? Do I just say like, I think to be bad most of the time, like I guess I just kind of like laugh it off and say that we can't say that. That's
I have this it's actually, so actually this is something that happens. I'm going to say something that's going to shock you guys. So this is something that happened while we're working at Emerald Works, right? And it's interesting because so I was given a compliment, and it was like it was funny. Me and this individual we have great banter, and it's actually really really cool and stuff. And I didn't take offense to this whatsoever, but when we talk about when you talk about a person's quality as a person, and that quality is they're making that decision based on. I felt that it was making that impression of me was based on the color of my skin rather than my behavior or who I am as an individual. You can't, this person will say, you're just so cool. You're just so smooth, like you're so cool. What is that base? What are you basing this on? Like, you see once or twice a week. I walk in and I really mainly, like I talk to my team. We maybe cross path in a very public area, maybe, but it's not really. You don't know enough about me to decide. I mean, I'm a big nerd. Like, there's nothing cool about me at all. But and the things he compliments me about is more perceived than anything. He's more like it's a perception based, an assumption rather than what he's seen me do. Like it's you have no basis of that. Or for example, you must be really like charismatic. Like there is nothing about there's nothing about the thing you see me do that suggests I'm more charismatic than the person next to me. Maybe I'm wrong. This is the thing, and that's another thing about this, being careful about what you're feeling, because obviously that's the issue you were talking about, Hesh, where you're like, okay, is this something that he's doing, or is it something I'm just being, there is a certain level of there's quite a bit of thing that there's a bit on you to understand that this is not something I'm making up in my head. It's not in my head. It's actually I'm actually experiencing. So I know, for example, it's like, okay, well, if I have an issue with this, so this is going back to the point about whose responsibility. If I feel a way about it, then I should say something.
Then it's legit, yeah.
So because even if he's not doing it on purpose, I'm like, what? Ask him a bit more. Why are you saying that? Is that because I'm black, or is it because you actually think I am? Because I want to know. Because I just don't want you to think I'm cool because I'm black. Because I'm into because of the way, like, maybe he likes the way I speak. Maybe he thinks the way I speak is funny, and he likes that. Okay, that's different. But is it based on just the fact that I am a black person? So you think of me as every other black person you've seen on television, and automatically I'm how cool? Or is it because you actually think Jeffrey as an individual is cool?
Yeah.
And that's a harmless situation. That's completely, because if you can see someone like that just because of the color of their skin, that also means that you can see
you're judging.
You can see someone becoming an angry black man. You can see someone being like, because if I decide to wear a hoodie into work one day, oh, I'm a thug. That kind of no Spanish. But you know what I mean? Like, just because something's positive in that scenario, there is also another side to that perception or that misconception or that microaggression or whatever. So, microaggressions in itself, even that can be like, like your experience, like it can be packaged in a very positive way. And it's like, okay, well, it's harmless, it doesn't do anything, so I don't need to say anything about it. But actually, you know.
Yeah, there's two sides. Yeah, there could be two sides.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because you know, like I think when you think about it in that scenario, I just want to just touch on this before we move on to the next point. But how would you treat that situation that you experienced? And you, say, how would you treat it differently? What would you do differently now that you're in this world of like awareness and enlightenment and people being more conscious of it? How would you behave differently in that scenario?
I mean, I'm definitely more vocal about it, and I think I definitely feel like it's now more that I actually have the right to say something, and that, you know, like what Ash was saying, like, well, maybe if that makes them feel uncomfortable, then that makes them feel uncomfortable. You know,
So
I think now is the
you
time.
feel,
Sorry.
I'm saying, is that something you feel is completely different now that you feel that before you didn't feel you had the right to say something, but now you feel like you do?
The
Yeah.
thing is, we've always had the right to say something, right? Yeah, yeah. But I think that this has, like, this situation is, you know, since the death of George Floyd, I think that's actually obviously given people of color a much bigger platform to be able to, an opportunity to be able to say something, whereas before you had the right to say something, but people would just look at you as being difficult.
Yeah.
So the difference for me, I think for me, the difference is it's not that fact that I've always had the right to say something. I've had the choice to say something. But you know, when you're having an argument with someone and you know that person's not listening, sometimes you just need to let it go. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was arguing with somebody who wasn't listening before.
Yeah, yeah.
And now that's the difference. I think that's the difference. The difference is not in me. The difference is in everybody else. Do you know what I mean? The difference is that if I say something, I know the person next to me is likely to support me. I'm not just going to be the only one saying it. And I think for me, that is the biggest difference. That's what's impacted. That's the impact I've seen the most. That, you know, I don't even have, before even I get upset about it, the person next to me, regardless of race, color, gender, you know, orientation, they are saying it almost before I do. You know what I mean? And that to me is the difference now. It's not, you know, you're still seeing, so, and you know, only the only interesting thing is that you're now seeing people fight back even more. Like, and a really cool thing is as well that you're seeing ignorance come out a lot more now. The more that people are becoming more tolerant and maybe not even tolerant, but being more open-minded about this subject matter. The people who aren't open-minded, like the extremists, are becoming more and more.
But do you think as well, like, because this is one of the things that came out of the events of following George Floyd's death for me is, I think more and more people are also realizing that racism isn't just about people being extremely racist or you know, like really right wing, and you know, there's just like those crazy people that like are not in our circles at all, and we probably think they're going to die out soon, and we like they're just like in this corner of the world, and let's just not forget. But then it's actually, racism just like actually exists in so many other forms, you know, like we were talking about microaggression, things that may seem harmless, but also, you know, just sort of the way that things are designed, the way that systems are designed. I think these are the things that are like really kind of cropping up, and people are realizing, oh right, it's not just like people walking down the street shouting like rude words at you, it's actually the way things are set up for people of color in this country, and well, you know, in the US and also in this country, that's actually you know, there's an issue there. And I think more and more people are realizing that. And like I'm chatting to more with my like friends, and I mostly have white friends, and it's like a really uncomfortable conversation because a lot of the times I think they're sort of realizing, oh, some of these sort of unfair or unjust systems, like they've had an advantage from that, you know, they've gained advantages in life in that, and without even realizing. And now it's like, okay, then how do you tackle that, and how do you have that conversation? Because it's not, you know, it's like, well, whose fault is it?
There's been some really interesting things that I've seen, and I think I'll highlight two because I just felt like it had a really big impact. There's one scenario where somebody was arguing about, you know, how you know, as you know, everyone's talking about privilege, for example, which is another topic that came up in this, and you know, why is it my fault if I am deemed as privileged? And I think the conversation, just basically the end point of the conversation was, you know, if you knew you were being given a promotion, and that's based on you've been, the overriding reason is because of, your legacy, the fact that you've had these, better still, that based on what you know about society and everything, opportunities that's been given to you, and you feel that somebody is better equipped to be in your job, but you're applying for the same, and the overriding reason is because you're white, you're getting this job rather than, the black person, even though they're better equipped. Would you give up that job? Would you give up that opportunity? And it's an ethical question. It's like you both applied for the job, you both work for the same company, and the overriding, when you think about it, you're applying for it because you've been elevated. You're in your 30s or 20s, late 20s, and this person is in their 40s. They've worked hard to get to this point, and you're early in your career, and you're being given the opportunity. Is that because you've had a great deal more, opportunities than this person has? And this is where you start thinking about equality and equity, and these are the things that make a difference, and essentially that 10 years in that scenario, to me represents the gap in what it sort of like puts a value on, that opportunity being missed, and the difficult, how much more difficult it is for somebody in a minority community compared to white, maybe somebody, I don't want to use the word white, but in this scenario, we'd have to say white. It's someone who's white and moving up the social structure. That's what the difference is.
Like I also I don't know. It might just me who think this, but sometimes I also wonder whether I know that I'm suitable for the role and I know that I'm capable, but sometimes I also wonder if I got hired because I'm Asian, because it's like a positive discrimination thing. I wonder, okay, that's not a lot of Asian people in this company, and I've applied, and I can do the job, but I might have gotten the job over some other white person or a person of another color.
That's so true. Like I go into every kind of any interview I go into, or any role I get, I always go in thinking, is it because of this or because of that? Is it because of the right reason or is it because of the wrong reason? And then you think, all right, I'm grateful I've got the job, but I wonder what it is. Is it a tick box for that company, or is it because I'm the right fit for the role? And I feel like it's something that we'll never know.
Actually, I think I was actually thinking to myself, it's actually quite clear when it is, because what you'll find is you may find there's a diverse population in that company, but there's a glass ceiling for those. There's a glass ceiling for people of minority in those kind of companies. Because that's what I'm saying. There is that gap. Yes, we're multi just because you tick the box. The companies that do the tick boxing, and those people stay. They don't get looked at after they've been employed. They don't get the pay rises. They don't get the promotions. They don't progress. Those people are in their jobs for very long periods of time. Whereas if a company comes in and there's absolute equity across the business, people will be, you will have because naturally numbers would dictate the numbers are less, but actually what you'll see is that there is an opportunity given to everyone, and there'll be more of a representation of other, people, genders, races in different positions of different levels, because the opportunity is available to everyone. Whereas those companies that are just doing it for checkbox, I firmly believe, there is a glass ceiling. Racism in the workplace, is that that is a subtle something you have to look into that. Maybe I'm
mate. I've had the worst. I worked in a company 2 years ago,